Welcome back to the Tech Connect podcast. I'm here today with Ted. I'm going to ask Ted to introduce himself in just a second. And we're really talking about what you need to know about the 2026 tech hiring market. I think we'll talk a little bit both on the recruiter side and the candidate side. And in particular, we want to get into some of the research that we've just completed here at Dice and talk about where the trends are and what's going to happen. So Ted, please just introduce yourself and IQ Clarity.
Yep. I'm Ted Hellmuth. I'm the founder of IQ Clarity. We are a boutique recruiting firm, almost going on 10 years, based here in Denver, Colorado, with operations in Texas and across the U.S.
Now, do you just, you specialize mainly in engineering and technology roles, or you do anything?
We specialize in engineering and tech, and also marketing creative.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So it's thank you for coming here, because I think you have good insights into what's happening with the market more broadly. Let's just start with 2025 was a more challenging year, I think.
Correct.
It's early in 2026. What are you seeing just sort of as the year starts?
Absolutely. It's started to be a very good year in terms of demand. It actually started late last year, probably around November timeframe. Saw an uptick in job orders, particularly an uptick in leadership job orders. So It was an interesting trend to see companies maybe wanting to set themselves up for solid leadership into the new year. But yeah, it's been a very strong start to the year, which I could not say at the beginning of last year.
Okay. I think one of the trends we saw over the last couple years, and I'm going to broaden this more widely, is two things. We've seen companies contract. So there's been a lot of technologists leaving organizations. And then we've seen what I would consider to be a lack of movement. So without people moving. And I think you need both people moving and you need hiring to kind of really stimulate the market. Are you seeing signs that we're starting to kind of move away from that? Or is there still some stuff blocked?
Yeah, I would say the blockage is starting to unravel in a good way. We're seeing an uptick in demand. Obviously, that's demand for our services is a leading indicator that the market's starting to strengthen. People are willing to pay fees to find the right people. They're unable to find the right people on their own with their own TA departments. So it's starting to unblock. I think getting candidates who are currently working to make the leap of faith to join a new firm, that has some challenge because there's like stability in your current role.
Yep.
So there's some interesting dynamics happening there, but in general, that blockage, so to speak, is starting to loosen up a little bit. Which is
I think there's some mixed messaging in the data we receive from the survey we did of the tech professionals. So, for example, you're absolutely right. Job stability went from 7 to 2 for a reason for leaving, but not because people are concerned about is the new company I'm stable on. Actually, it's about stability in their own role as well. But then you also have 74% of tech professionals who say they plan to change their employer next year. So I think there's a desire to move. It's just whether or not there's opportunity to shift.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that we've heard about, in my career is, of course, when engineering becomes tighter in an organization, you end up with burnout. There's a lot of responsibility on engineering teams. Are you hearing candidates, or are you seeing that there's some relief in sort of people overworking, or is it just part of being in the industry?
Right. I unfortunately, the way the market has trended over the last couple of years, the trend has been we're going to do more with less. We're going to have our software engineer also be the QA, also be the business analyst, also be the product owner. So there's this element of sort of combining roles, and that absolutely leads to burnout. Candidates don't come to us and say like, "Hey, I'm burnt out. I need a new job." But they'll signal. They'll say, "My company just laid off half my team.
Yep.
I got a lot more responsibility on my plate. I'm maybe hoping to find something with a little more work-life balance. So they're not going to directly tell us, hey, that's not a good look, I guess. But
yeah, it's tricky. And look, I mean, the balance to that, if you're a tech professional and you are in one of those situations, is I think you embrace it in the short term as an awesome growth opportunity.
100%. Yep.
You know, some of the most interesting periods in my career have been where there's been contraction and you're given more responsibility and you're having to handle things that you may not be comfortable with.
Yep.
I think there's the answer to all questions seems to be, well, doesn't AI just take care of all that now? I'm not sure we're quite there yet, Ted.
No, I don't think so. It's certainly commanding a lot of attention in headlines, a lot of attention on everyone's LinkedIn feed, on everyone's news feed. You know, it's getting a lot of attention. I think executives see that and they start commanding their leaders. Well, what are you doing with AI? What are we doing? How are we being more efficient? How many heads are we going to cut? Or what? And it's the practicality of it has not hit yet. So we're still kind of in that transformation phase.
Yeah, we've seen a huge increase in the number of job postings that require AI, and it's starting to feel like there's lots of opportunity in AI, and then there's all the other jobs that are coming around. When I know that you work with organizations to screen candidates, what emphasis are you putting in? How do you even ask, like, what's your AI experience? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll ask a question around, tell me what you've done with AI to make yourself more efficient in your last role. What was your last employer's appetite to embrace AI, and how was your team leveraging it? And then dig deeper, like, how did you use it? What were some ideas that you came to the table with that helped make your team more efficient? And then you get sort of one or two, well, there's probably 3 different reactions. The most common we see are, my company was anti, they didn't use it. They didn't want us using it. There were too many security risks. So I didn't get much experience there. The other answer is, well, we were playing with it. We were using Cursor to write some code. We used Copilot to do this or that. And I just helped, execute on that. Well, but that's not what employers want right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Employers want a principal engineer who's harnessed the power of all these tools, who can stitch them all together and make magic happen. And when we find those candidates, I can get them a job in a week.
Right.
They're just fewer and further between at the moment.
Yeah. So. Okay. Do you anticipate, as because AI is still there is enormous opportunity for companies to leverage AI. And I think, we talked about this on this podcast before. You're starting to see AI get narrower and more proficient in more specialized tasks, but the general application still, it has some broad issues. When you start to apply it more broadly, have you been asked by any of these companies to find specific AI roles, or is it still more general?
We've seen a lot of leadership demand. So we're looking for a director of data and AI, and it sort of gets lumped in with the data and analytics team right now. But the companies that are doing it right, the best organizations we work with have a chief data and AI officer who is setting the guardrails, empowering teams, giving them the tools they need, ensuring that it's used properly, and really putting task forces together to attack different business problems, different areas where AI can really be a huge lifeline to different organizations to be more efficient. But that's a very small minority of organizations that are getting to that point.
Yeah, I just read an article, large multinational who, a few years ago followed the let's just go crazy and see what works with AI, is really pulling that back in again and driving more targeted work through a chief innovation officer or an AI officer of some description that's actually managing where the effort's going, because it does create sprawl, a lot of sprawl. I'm fascinated by this idea that eventually managers will be able to create their own software in the middle. it boggles my mind about how much sprawl and mess we're going to make, which is excellent for tech professionals because we're the ones that are going to have to tidy it all up at some point. That's right. Yeah, it's like the old the old experience of going into a company and everyone will be like, well, we run everything on Excel spreadsheets. Can you make the macros into computer programs? This is the new version of that, I suspect. So, yeah, it is. So one of the other trends around AI has been in organizations where there's this sort of a belief that you don't need junior programmers, right? Senior programmers, you mentioned you can take a senior person with integration experience and get them a job in a second. I think that's come at the expense right now of more junior positions. So are we creating a problem here by companies not embracing and hiring more junior engineers in organizations?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the pipeline. That's sort of the talent pool of the next generation. And if those individuals are being turned off from the tech industry, that pipeline starts to dry up, and that really impacts us 5 years, 10 years down the road. So, I don't think that early graduates have no opportunity. What I think is that the opportunity landscape is changing, and it's changing very rapidly and very dramatically. So those graduates who are proactive, who have embraced AI in their studies, have embraced AI in their projects, have a portfolio of work that they've done and automated through the use of AI tools, they are going to have a much better chance of going out and getting a job in this market. I'd probably be more concerned about the senior engineer who's reluctant to use AI tools. That individual is going to have a harder time getting a job in this market, if things do tighten up or things get worse. So.
Yeah, I think obviously there's been a pipeline of more junior engineers, both through comp sci courses, but also boot camps. A lot of coding boot camps. I know they're shifting to AI. I will also say if you are motivated, there's a ton of resource available out on the internet to learn all these tools that are effectively available free. I also recognize that as you get more mature in your career, those more senior developers are specialists and experts in a particular field, and that is something that takes a little bit more effort to kind of stretch a past. For a few of you though, there's still people writing COBOL, so maybe you can hang on right the way through.
I think so. There's always opportunity out there.
There is always opportunity out there.
But maybe someone come up with an AI agent that writes COBOL and JCL and all sorts of.
I'm pretty sure you can get. You can get AI to write COBOL. Funnily enough, the other day I have a couple of retro computers, and I had. I was just saying before, I did a career talk at my daughter's high school.
Nice.
And I wanted to show, what the power of generative AI is. And, my first computer was an 8-bit computer that you needed a cassette recorder to load the code onto. Yep. And the generative AI is actually pretty good at creating basic code that will just run straight on those machines. It's amazing. Perfect. So yeah, no more typing out of a book anymore. You can just prompt the game that you want.
Which that is just prompt engineering and context engineering. That is also an opportunity where if you're early in your career and you want to segue into a job with AI at the center of it, look at prompt engineer, look at context engineering. There's all these things that take a human's brain to sort of get into the machine. So
yeah. Now you touched on this before in our survey. Almost a quarter of technologists said that they're using AI without their manager's permission. Maybe they're stuck in an organization that isn't being as progressive and you're not going to get that growth. If you're looking to change, let's say you are wanting to embrace that. What suggestions do you have for a candidate to sort of understand if I move, am I moving to a more progressive environment or am I just going to end up with the same frustrations?
Absolutely. It's funny because there's a lot of organizations, all the engineers that are listening right now have probably dealt with interview processes that are absurd, right? They will 4 interviews, a 2-hour paired programming exercise. a take-home test, and then the firms that say, don't use AI on this take-home test, immediate sort of red flag, right? That should go up. What we're seeing is the progressive organizations are saying, here's the challenge. We encourage you to use AI, but you're going to have to explain how you leverage AI to solve this problem. And, if you're just having AI do everything for you and you can't explain it back to the hiring manager, they're not going to hire you. But if you can say, here was the problem set, here's where I thought AI could be applicable, here's the solution it came up with, here's why I thought that solution was okay, and here's how I modified it to be the perfect solution.
Yeah, so. No, that's great advice. I mean, I think the other thing I'd add onto this, and this is something both during your job seeking and, to be honest, once you're employed, to be wary of, is AI slop. I'm a manager of an organization, and I see occasionally, evidence of AI slop. And while I think it's a useful tool, you've got to be very careful about how you repurpose and present it. I think it's a great tool. Just you got to be judicious with how you use it, I think. Yeah.
Double check what comes out of there. I get emails where, those random words are bold, and I know for sure ChatGPT decided to bold some of those words and someone just cut and pasted.
Yeah. So. Just while we're on generative AI for a second, let's talk about resumes real quick. I think we've seen an explosion of tools and the ability to build perfect resumes for the perfect job. Are you hearing recruiters? How are recruiters dealing with that?
Yeah. Resumes are one part of the job search process, and I'd encourage everyone that's out there that's looking for a job, or like, resume is one piece of the puzzle. Yes, use it, AI or generative AI to build a template for you, but you have to go in and you have to put things in your own words and really make sure that you're leveraging impact statements. So it's one thing to say, wrote C#, built a program that did X, Y, and Z, but like, what was your impact? How do you quantify what you did in that role that sets you apart from the 10, 30, 50, 100 other applicants out there? Because that's what we're dealing with right now is there's too many applicants. There's, post a software engineer role that's 100% remote and just watch. It will have 1,000 applicants within a few days. And, a good percentage of those are probably fake. A good percentage are probably, hackers from North Korea. Yep. A good percentage of those are just, they're not real people. So companies now are trying to fold in layers of screening that just prove it's a human, right?
Yep.
So if you're a human and you're looking for a job, you're already a leg up from, at least
good job, human beings.
600 of those other resumes that you're competing against. So how do you prove that, right? Have a resume that feels human, that looks human, that reads human, and that talks about the impact that you had on your last role.
Should I add a spelling mistake?
Yeah, do it. That's nothing more human than a grammatical error.
We've been telling everyone that take spelling mistakes out of resumes for the last 20 years. Now we're adding them back in to show that we're a person. So
yes, an fallible human.
Do you think, when you go to websites occasionally and you have to click that box that says, are you a human? Mm-hmm. Should we include that on resumes?
We should, but unfortunately I've seen and built tools that actually like a robot can do that now. So is outdated.
So we're in and I think we're starting to see a little bit of mobility. It sounds like you're seeing more demand, and I am very encouraged to hear companies looking again for leadership, because that ultimately does result in aligned strategy and then often mobility within organizations. Some people leave, some people come. That's good to hear. If I'm on the candidate side just for a second, what are some of the biggest mistakes you're seeing candidates make in this current market? Because it's still competitive.
It is very, and I don't want to discount that. It is not an easy job market to navigate as a candidate, as a job seeker. The biggest mistake that I see are individuals who are actively looking for a role and only using the job application as their vehicle for finding a new opportunity.
Yep.
So they're submitting jobs, they're submitting resumes, they're hoping and praying that somebody sees it. And the reality is it's a horrible and sick reality, but not every resume gets reviewed by a human.
What?
So unfortunately, the percentage chance of you winning an opportunity, even if you're perfect for the role, if that's all you're doing,
Yep.
you're missing out on 60% of the actual job seeking process, which is networking, figuring out who the hiring manager is, get introduced to that company. So there's a lot of other methods job seekers just aren't doing that will really help set you apart from the rest of the pool.
Yeah, and that completely resonates with advice we've given many times around it's not just good enough to apply. Building those relationships and networking becomes really, really important. Now, I'll also tell you, just sending the recruiting manager a LinkedIn message to say you're applying for a job, that may not be enough either. So, you've got to be, I think, tactical about how you approach that. And then, I've given this advice before with more junior members in the industry or junior people in the industry, which is it's okay to find lateral roles inside a company. If the company is big enough and you can find an opportunity to get employed there, you have such a better chance of then showing your value and moving into an engineering or into where you want your career to be. It's incredibly useful. And then, from my personal experience, my first IT role was a lateral move in from the sort of the nitty gritty part of the business.
Yep.
And it was incredibly valuable because I actually understood what the business did at the core. And that served me well. So don't be scared of finding an opportunity and moving laterally.
Absolutely.
So,
I had a computer science grad who I was mentoring. He was looking for a role and ended up it was last year and the market was just not good. He took a help desk role, which was, a tier 1 job at the company, but he's helping automate a lot of the job that he's doing. The hiring manager's obviously reviewing that and being like, wow, we don't, you're making your job a lot more efficient. So you can get in at a base role and really work your way up and do a lateral role and just show what you're capable of. So.
Also, if you're on the help desk, you get admin access to all the recruiting tools. You can put yourself right at the top there.
Exactly.
So what about mistakes on the employer side? What are you seeing that candidates should be aware of that employers aren't doing well given the changes in how we're recruiting?
Yeah. I mean, employers' biggest mistake is drawing the process out way too long. They think the perfect candidate is out there. So 5 interviews, then the process gets to where candidates are getting burnt out just applying to jobs, much less getting the job and working there. So really have a mindful process where within 3 interviews, you can assess if this person's a good fit for the role. The candidate's going to feel better about you as an organization. They're going to feel better about, how you're engaging with them. So really that process. And then in this employer's market, we just forget about the candidate experience. Like that's a human being back there that is going through the motions, and if you're treating them
Hold
like
on,
garbage,
you just said most of them were robots.
They are,
so,
right,
okay,
right. So
right,
one of them, one or two of them are
one
humans.
or two of them are humans. Okay, yeah.
Those are the ones you want to take care of and just show them a good experience because that reflects when they have, and we're getting to a point now where candidates are getting multiple offers. So if your candidate experience was poor and you really fall in love with that person, they might not take your role. So
yeah, I mean, I've read about this for a while. Particularly for larger organizations, your employee experience is part of your brand experience as well. I think that shifts if you're a smaller organization, but particularly for large ones, there is a lot of impact in that. So now I asked you this at the beginning. Let's just double down on this. What do you think? What's your prediction for the rest of the year here?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a feeling this is going to be another year of transformation. A more positive year for job seekers than it was in the past. We've already seen it. Sort of the macroeconomic climate, while it's not stable, it has reached a point that people know what to expect.
Yeah.
And so with that clarity comes, okay, we're going to set our strategy. We're going to follow our strategy. We're going to hire these people. We're going to start these projects. We're going to invest. There was this hesitancy to invest last year. Now that money's getting unlocked, new startups. So there's a lot of AI startups out there.
Is there?
They're hiring people.
What's this AI?
It's crazy wild stuff that works magic. But there is opportunity. So and this market is proving that engineers are getting multiple offers. We're seeing more demand. People want to use recruiters again, agencies, and pay fees. That's, obviously good news for everybody, I think. So, so things are starting to unlock, but it's going to be that year of transformation. I would not go into this expecting a normal year. Roles are going to change. Expectations are going to change. So be ready for it. Be proactive and stay ahead of the curve when it comes to leveraging AI, leveraging automation tools. Set yourself apart from the rest of the applicants that are out there. And I assure you, you'll have a much better job finding and securing that offer.
Yeah, I think at a macro level, there seems to be a little bit more confidence in the sort of the stability of our economy this year, which means that companies are more likely to make a capital investments and place some bets, which require investment in teams. So that's encouraging for sure. Last question. Let's give some advice to job seekers who are in the mix right now. What can I do this week if I'm actively looking for a role? What's your advice?
My advice is there's probably more jobs out there. So the tendency is to just hit apply to as many that meet sort of close to what you're looking for. Pick the 3 that you are an absolute diamond in the rough for, that you're a good fit across the board. You hit all the expectations. You've been in that industry. You've done this role before. Pick those 3 and figure out who's the hiring manager. So there's tools out there. You can find it. Find someone that works at that company that maybe you know or know someone at that company and try to get an introduction. It's one thing to message the hiring manager. It's a much different thing if somebody else sends your resume to the hiring manager and says, hey, this person's perfect for this role. You should check them out. I know when I was working for a Fortune 500 company, I'd have an SVP that would forward me a resume. It wasn't a good fit, but the SVP sent it to me. So I freaking had to call him.
Yeah, that's right.
So you're going to get attention if you go that route.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And you there are many tools to figure out what your relationship is to that company and who you might know. We've talked about this before. How do you use some of these more emerging tools? One of the other things I think, in my experience, sets a candidate apart in the interview process is it's not just one way, that you're getting thoughtful questions that are relevant to the business back from the candidate. And that is an area where tools, the generative AI is incredibly 100%. Useful for researching the context of you and the organization that you're going to interview with. And again, same thing, you have to pick the value from that. You can't just use it verbatim, and then you need to validate, because there are occasions where, I know this is going to surprise you, Ted, AI makes things up.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
Hallucinates.
It does
too many
hallucinate.
Grateful Dead shows. I don't know.
It's getting better, but it's definitely still there. So, well, thank you. Any last words of wisdoms for our tech professionals out there?
I think to get out into the market, right? Go to networking events, meet people. That's the human touch that sort of gets lost in all this. So go meet people, go out to coffee with your network, really nurture your network and expand it. And the possibilities are endless.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ted.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.